Welcome to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women that replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women in the United States, according to the CDC and NIH. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, or stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, and hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. Freeman, and you'll hear me interview other sisters in loss from around the world who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Storytelling is powerful. Storytelling is activism. Storytelling is healing. Now let's get started.
Hey everyone, thank you all for coming tonight. I hope that happy hour is still going on till 7, so please order something on the menu. My name is Erica Freeman. I'm the founder of Sisters in Loss, and I really just want to say thank you all for being here, mainly because I know for many of us it's hard to really show up to spaces like this, and it's really not easy, especially to sit in a room where we are going to be talking about grief and where grief exists. So it really takes courage to do so. So I know that some memories may come up for you all today in today's conversation. Emotions that we don't always have language for can come to the surface. But you are still here. You came. Because we could be on the rooftop right now. Because it's beautiful outside. But we're here in this space. And I just want to really just kind of take a moment and just ground yourselves in that. Because you didn't have to be here, but this is where we need to be, and this is a conversation that we need to have. So I want us to take a few cleansing breaths. So whatever you need to do to kind of ground yourself, we're going to take a couple breaths in with our nose for 3 counts, in, out with our mouth for 3 counts. All right, y'all ready? Mm-hmm. All right, let's take them in with our nose, 2, 3, and out with our mouth. 2, 3. Another cleansing breath in with your nose, 2, 3, and out with our mouth, 2, 3. All right. So tonight we gather during Black Maternal Health Week, a time where we not only raise awareness, but we tell the truth. The truth that Black women are disproportionately impacted by maternal health. The truth that pregnancy loss and infertility are often experienced in silence. And the truth that too many of us have had to navigate these journeys without the support and care in the community we deserve. But tonight we're shifting that, we're having the conversation. Tonight is about being rooted in justice, naming what is real, what is broken, and what must change. And it's also about choosing joy, not the kind that ignores grief, but the kind that exists alongside it. Because grief and joy can coexist. The kind that reminds us that we are still here, that we're still worthy, that we're still connected. At Sisters in Loss, we really believe that healing is not done alone. It happens in community, and healing happens in spaces like this, where stories are shared, where truth is honored, and where we are held. So I invite you all tonight to take what you need. If you need to listen, listen. If you need to feel. If you need to cry. If you need to step out, we honor that. We have lots of therapists and healers in this room that can step out and hold space for you. And if you feel called to share a bit of your story, you are welcome here. You are seen here. You're safe here, and you are not alone. So let's begin tonight's conversation. Our aim tonight is really to answer these questions. What does safe Black maternal care look like? What are our systems failing? Where they're failing? How do we protect Black mothers? What does healing look like in community? And what action must we do right now? So I'm honored to be joined by these incredible voices who are doing the work here in the DC area, or DMV, however y'all want to call it. Each of them brings a unique perspective on what it means to really navigate loss, infertility, healing, and community, really, for us Black women. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists. First, to my left, we have Shivonne Odom-Chase. She's our clinical authority here, a licensed professional counselor in perinatal and reproductive mental health at Coma Counseling Concepts and a PhD student. She not only provides expert care, but she also trains other clinicians, shaping the future of therapy for mothers. Welcome, Shivonne. Next, we have Jaye on the far end. Jaye is our community architect. She is the community builder here. Jaye Wilson, she's a nurse and founder of Melanated Moms, a nonprofit who has built a powerful community network dedicated to empowering and activating Black mothers across the country. So welcome, Jaye. And finally, we have our hands-on expert. I always say she is the doula of the DC area, Vanessa Hanible. She's an international board certified lactation consultant and full-spectrum doula. Through her company, Wholesome Beginnings, she provides the essential in-the-room support that ensures families have the best possible start. So thank you all, ladies, for being here, lending your expertise, and we're gonna jump right into the conversation. Let's begin with the first part of our theme, the phrase rooted in justice. Rooted in justice is powerful, but typically justice begins where systems fail. So for all of you all, and I'll start with you, Shivonne, and we'll go down the list, go down the row. In your work, where do you see the system most profoundly failing Black women who are navigating those vulnerable spaces of pregnancy loss, birth trauma, or infertility diagnosis?
I could be, I don't know. Okay, I could be long-winded with this, but I won't. The two places where I see it in infertility treatment, because we are delayed in arriving up to like 12 to 18 months and seeking out care. And the other gap that I'm seeing is in the training of Black perinatal mental health clinicians. People assume that there's so many of us. There's so few. There's so few. And what is the injustice in that is when people are trying to find culturally informed internships, right? When they're also trying to also get that good perinatal mental health job that comes with like student loan forgiveness. And what we're finding is a lot of disparities in that realm. And so what does that do? That impacts individuals' access to care. So that's my short answer.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Where's the systems failing us the most?
Yes.
Ooh. Okay. You know, when I was looking up these questions, I kept being like, I could have so many answers. Like, what do I choose? I mean, the system is failing us because we're not making it home to our babies. So, you know, we talk about implicit bias and things, and racism is killing us. And I think a big place is the system is killing us in the way that medical providers are trained to provide care to people who are not white, who have brown skin, who are Black. You know, the education system is rooted in our downfall. I hate to say it, because we are, you know, medical providers, whether it's OBs, midwives, because, you know, of course, I love midwives, but this country, we in a racist country. So inherently, the education that these providers are receiving are flawed. And so before we even come in the door to get prenatal care, we're already battling in the education system for providers. So I think that's a big starting place that I'm stuck there.
Okay.
So, what you just said, I was like, oh shoot, community architect. But honestly, it's the lack of us being able to have our community involved in our care. We are communal people, and when you are having a baby or going through fertility leave, having the ability to tap into your community is essential. And if you're in a room with people who don't look like you or people who don't recognize what you look like because they don't see color, they see it, but they don't see color, they're not seeing you as someone who needs the access or who needs the support because they're just trying to jump you in together. I think also there's the integration of clinical and holistic practices as a meeting of the minds instead of it being a competition, right? So I'm a nurse by trade. I've been a nurse for like 2 years, and in all those years, I've learned so much more about how to care for a pregnant person from doulas, way more than nurses. No shade to nurses, no shade at all. But like when I can understand that birth is not a procedure, but it is a process, that is not something that was taught to me in nursing school. So to integrate both of those things, the community and clinical and holistic care into the way that we practice and to the way that we support people, I think that's what's missing.
One thing that I forgot to say, all the clinicians, all the therapists, is from raise your hand. Okay. I see not every, okay. All 3 of them can let you know how many classes did you guys take in perinatal mental health in grad school? None, right? Because we're not required to have to take those courses in order to be licensed. But even so, the stigma, the negative stigma against mental health, also it causes a lot of isolation and silos in the maternal health field. So we have perinatal mental health clinicians, I'm putting air quotes, that are perinatal mental health clinicians, and that's why she knows where I'm going. And they're not working with the birth workers.
Yeah.
They don't even know who the birth workers are.
Yeah.
And there are some wonderful perinatal mental health clinicians, and they work with the birth workers, right? And then also the same could be said for some of the birth workers as well, because stigma is real. Stigma is real. So again, those gaps and those silos and isolation, it really impacts pretty much moms being able to get the care that they need.
So we talked a bit about those systemic failures. Vanessa, I want you to really speak because you're in that room where folks are really, you're trying to build that bridge. So when you're in the room providing that layer of advocacy and support as a doula, what's the immediate difference you see in Black mothers' experiences versus our counterparts?
So 2 things. I guess I want to talk from my experience as a doula, but I also want to just give y'all a little information. So one thing is like the white mothers, they don't understand how much privilege they have in the space. So that also, I'm going somewhere where they just follow me. So they don't even realize that there is a disparity a lot of times in the care on their side. So for me, as a doula, I work with Black clients, white clients, Asians, Latin, X, all of that. So sometimes on that end, I'm like, girl, you don't understand. You go to this place and you're in danger and you think because you're white that it's going to save you, but it's not. So, for melanated people, I think in the room, what we're seeing is just the communication that's happening from the providers, talking over people, not really listening to what my clients are saying, viewing them as being combative, or my clients feeling like they need to communicate in a certain way to not be seen as combative or, getting treated differently, us sometimes having conversation, like when the provider is leaving the room, like, what is this, is this, also them questioning, is the advice given legitimate? Is this real? Like, are they really telling me the truth? Are they lying to me? Are they just trying to get me to do this procedure because it's easier, because it's making more money? So there's a lot of skepticism, a lot of distrust. And then I think, what I see sometimes with the providers as well, along with those things, is just, like rushing in the birth space, like trying to move things along, especially you see this a lot, with inductions, which I dread, trying to move this process too quickly. Like, the body needs time to go through this, and so there ends up being a breakdown in communication because there's assumptions oftentimes on the provider side, and there's distrust on the client side, and sometimes there's a lot of navigating in that relationship, and then I think afterwards, if the birth experience is at minimum not what they were expecting to traumatic, then there's sometimes conversation like race is always going to be factored into that a little bit.
So after that part, after we do have those traumatic birth experiences, we end up having many cases where providers really don't listen to us. So I really want to talk to you, Shivonne, and really talk about the toll it has on our mental health. So what happens when advocacy isn't there? So say there wasn't a Vanessa in the room with us and a woman is failed by the system. We all have some type of deep wound with our birth experiences in some shape, whether it's positive or we, had losses or fertility challenges. From a clinical perspective or just a personal perspective, because I know you can probably add on both, how does the trauma of being dismissed or ignored impact the mental health of Black mothers? And then the layering on top of that, the grief that we're already carrying.
So I'm going to answer this in two parts. So one, I want to say that it also happens with the provider in the room. And the reason why I'm pointing to Vanessa is because when I got my very first fertility workup, how many years ago was that?
Was that before or after?
Before COVID.
So it was like 2019.
Yeah. Okay. And so, for those that don't know, you can also bring a doula to your fertility appointments, right? And I didn't know what to ask or say, and Vanessa knew what to ask, and I will never forget this. I want to say the right name, but I won't. But
oh girl.
Yeah, girl. And you could tell that she was getting frustrated with Vanessa. She get frustrated with me on some how dare you come in here and ask me these questions? And instead of giving us the answers to the questions, these were good questions. And to give you an example, we were doing some type of ultrasound, and she told me, "Oh, I think that you have half a uterus." Was it something like that?
I think she said bicoordinate uterus.
Yeah, bicoordinate. Yeah.
Like split.
Like a split.
Yeah. And I didn't know what that was, so I looked at Vanessa and went, "Well, what's that?" And so Vanessa just said, "Well, you sure you want to know about this here, or we can talk about it later?" I'm like, "What's that?" Which is you only have half of the uterus. But here's the scary part about this. The provider refused to do any testing in that appointment to let me know, hey, you know what? Yeah, your uterus is just fine. So we had to wait weeks for me to go back to have an appointment to then be able to get my answers, which, by the way, remember, she ghosted me because she got mad that we were asking questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it can happen. It can happen with a provider. So I digress. And so what is the mental health impact of that, whether you have somebody with you in the room or not? Anxiety, stress. Can you imagine trying to go to work and deal with your job and then have that over your head, right? And then also, if you're a partner, you also have the partner part, right? And if you already have kids, you also have to balance that as well, too, because it never stops. So it's very anxiety invoking. And then also, we're also suffering from higher rates of depression. And the thing that breaks my heart the most is we are normalizing it. And what I mean by normalizing it, girl, I'm not depressed. I'm just tired. What do you mean I'm depressed? I'm just irritated. That's what I say, irritated. So I'm just irritated, right? No, or they'll pretty much express their depressive symptoms psychosomatically. I have back pain, I have arm pain, because, it's so heavy just lifting this kid, or I have a headache. Well, maybe the headache is really just coming from the stress of that doctor's appointment that you have. Maybe the headache is also coming from the stress of, man, I have to wait XYZ months in order for me to see a maternal fetal medicine doctor. And that happened to a relative of mine recently, and unfortunately, their baby passed. They made her wait 2 months to have an appointment with the maternal fetal medicine doctor, North Carolina. And what do you think is the impact of that? Depression. Some people experience shame, right? Some people experience guilt because it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm the mom, I was supposed to protect my baby. You did with the best of what you know. And then also that loneliness and that isolation. I can't begin to tell you how many times, whether in practice or in the hair salon, the nail salon, and sometimes people know what I do, and they'll say, oh yeah, I think I had that. I just remember just crying through washing my baby bottles. And what else did you do? That was it. That's what I just want to let anybody see it. So that's what the mental health impact is. And I want to make sure that I say this too. I really want to encourage more of us to speak up and tell your loved ones, your friends, I'm not okay. Because people are not going to read our minds. People have their own traumas. People have their own experiences. And people are not out there getting healing. So, you have hurt brushing up against hurt. And people are keeping stuff to themselves. So I'm pretty much just saying, like, if you're feeling something, speak up and say something, because you don't have to go through it alone. You'd be surprised how many people have experienced that. I'll be personal here. If you follow my Instagram, then you know. If you don't, I had 2 miscarriages last year. And the amount of people that came out to me that I've been knowing for years and told me their stories of miscarriage. It was just shocking. It was just really, really shocking. But it also broke my heart because so many of those people that told me about it, they suffered alone. They didn't get mental health care. And if you look at some of our U.S. territories, because some people don't like to acknowledge us, if the perinatal mental health care there is non-existent. If you go to the U.S. Virgin Islands, you go to Puerto Rico, perinatal mental health is non-existent. My sister gave birth in the only hospital that exists on the island. So when a hurricane happens, where do you think you're going to give birth? So again, we're also not getting funding in those territories, right? We're not getting education in those territories. We're not getting workers in those territories. We are largely being ignored and traumatized. So mental health looks like so many different things in our Black mom community.
Erica?
You want to answer? Go ahead.
Well, and I just want to say that I think to what Shivonne is saying about speaking out, you might have to speak out multiple times. The first person you speak out to may not be the person that can help you, but you have to keep saying it because sometimes they may not be the person that can help you, but you're desperate. So keep telling people. You're going to get connected to somebody who can help you the more that you tell your story, even though it's very painful.
And you mentioned, I really want to talk a little bit more about Black women being undiagnosed, misdiagnosed with their mental health. Why is that the case? And can you give us some examples on what that looks like for us?
I'm going to go right to the point. So one barrier is cost. Unfortunately, many of myself and colleagues are no longer accepting insurance. And so the cost is a barrier for individuals getting care. And why are therapists no longer accepting insurance? Because insurance companies are playing us. They're not paying us. And many of the practices locally around here had to shutter their doors because insurance companies still haven't paid us. Okay, it's 2026. I still feel it. I missed my $15,000. I haven't been paid it. And so would you keep working for a system that's not paying you? People have to eat. People have bills to pay, right? We have sick family members too. So that's one of the barriers to care. Pastor Passion, what's the question?
Undiagnosed and misdiagnosed.
Okay, so why are we also getting misdiagnosed?
Correct.
So one of the things that I learned a couple of years ago, specific to DC, is that every PCP and OBGYN are supposed to screen their patients for depression. And many of them are not screening patients for depression. What happens when you actually screen for depression? They ethically have to refer. And sometimes the providers are screening and they're not referring. And also some of these providers are just making sure that they're excluding us clinicians of color from their referral list. There's some clinicians in here that know my history, right, popping up into the clinics, and the office manager goes, oh, who are you? You're going to rob us? No, I'm a maternal health clinician, and I want to advertise my practice.
That's right.
Right. And I really posted a video of myself crying in like the early years of me starting my practice, because I just didn't understand why they didn't want me to, be on their referral list. And so the other things that also happen in terms of misdiagnosis, I love us. But in the words of the late Zora Neale Hurston, all skin folk ain't kin folk. And that's another thing that causes misdiagnosis. There is a clinician, there's a lot of social media clinicians there. And there was a clinician, I think it was last year, that was just telling people, you don't have to go see a therapist to diagnose autism, you can diagnose yourself.
Oh.
Yeah.
We don't remember that.
You remember that? The hate comments I got when I actually spoke up and said, no. No, you're actually harming people when you're saying this, right? So that's where some of the gaps are coming in. Many people are looking at social media and self-diagnosing and using a lot of therapeutic jargon that they don't understand, narcissist, trauma, unpack, and they think that they understand what's going on. You don't. So a lot of people are getting not diagnosed because they're not showing up, they're not being assessed, it's too expensive. And also another caveat here, many people are not reading their explanation of benefits for your health insurance.
You actually may be covered, right?
Do you know how many people, like some health insurance companies, I think it's like Care First, Blue Cross Blue Shield, depending upon your plan, if you have postpartum depression, guess what, you have no copay. But people are not reading the explanation of benefits, and they're banking on us not reading it.
Absolutely.
They're banking on us not reading it. Another reason why we're also getting misdiagnosed, again, is we have some clinicians that might look like us, and they have not been culturally trained. They're scared of being Black themselves.
We said we were telling the truth tonight,
I'm telling the truth. And, that also impacts how somebody's being diagnosed, because if you're not, one, accepting your Blackness, two, and then you're also not seeking out, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be using this assessment scale, I should be using this assessment scale, because the studies have shown that this assessment scale is oppressive of Black people, right? This assessment is much more inclusive. And then another reason why we're getting misdiagnosed, I can go on for days. Y'all, please stop overly relying on the urgent care. Please stop. Please stop. Because here's what happens. If you're exhibiting symptoms of panic and anxiety, you might be seen by an NP who had no rotation in psychiatry. Because guess what? Some practitioners don't have to have a psychiatry rotation. And they're going to check you out. They're going to do labs and all of that. And they're going to say, this is not consistent with any health disorder. You're fine. Go home. When people have panic disorder, they feel like they're dying. They literally feel like they're dying, they're inconsolable, they're dry heaving, and they really, really believe that they're dying, and they're getting turned away from care. So there's so many different ways in which we're getting misdiagnosed. And then also culture. Culture also plays a role in how we understand mental health and how we're not being diagnosed. I had a proud Prussian mom, a wonderful Prussian grandmother, and with all the wonderful training and stuff that I do, my grandmother still has no clue what I do. And you want to know why? Because there's barely any therapists in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Barely. So what is your value on mental health if it's not there? And how is that also influencing the future generations that are coming from you? So those are the different reasons why we're being misdiagnosed.
You all have anything to add?
Damn.
Erica, I always got something to add. I let everybody know I am. So, well, I was thinking something else too, Shivonne, that we talked about in the past years and years ago, rage in Black women and it not being seen as a cry for help. It being seen as us being combative or difficult or all of these things when it's really a symptom of depression or anxiety, overwhelmed, overstimulated. So that's a big one.
I did have something to say, sorry. So kind of what you were saying, like with your grandmother, I think we sometimes don't take into account the importance of storytelling with our families and understanding the historical context behind what may have been your grandmother's symptoms or your auntie's symptoms or things that they dealt with in their pregnancy because no one heard them, right? So if they feel like they weren't heard, they're making the generational choice of not hearing you too. But we have the great opportunity of changing that and being the sounding board for ourselves, but also inviting them, like, I'm so sorry they didn't hear you. Tell me your story, Grandma. You know, I remember having that conversation with my grandmother when I was pregnant the first time and not knowing what to do. I'm 19 years old, and she was like, girl, you're going to get through it, that's all. Just listen to the people and don't do too many things because then they're going to call the other people on you. And I'm like, this is no for y'all. Right? But here I am, 40 plus, and the things that I wish that my grandmother knew were okay to talk about. I can't have that conversation with her now, but I can have it with my children, right? So I can talk to them candidly about what my experience was, what I wish people listened to me about, and also how I have seen the benefits of therapy, talk therapy, art therapy, and there's so many different ways of embracing that to heal myself so I can also be more present for them.
Such a good word. All right. So we talked about the struggle and the truths of the struggle. Let's talk about healing. So to all of you all, our theme of tonight really points to a solution, which means healing in community. Community has been a foundation for many of us in so many different ways. And we know that healing can be isolating. What role has community played in your own journey or in the healing work you facilitate every day? That's to all of y'all. Anybody can answer.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Well, just honestly, the genesis of my organization started from the need of community. I went through a divorce. I found myself being a single solo mom, and I never have lived where my family lived when I had my children. So I needed to find community that embraced who we were, but also helped me to understand the transitions I was going through. And I've been very fortunate to be able to find multiple people who understood what that meant, but who were also looking for the same thing. I think we have this shame around asking for help because we don't want to seem too vulnerable, too needy, too whatever, right? But I got tired of doing it by myself. And I still do a bunch of shit by myself, I'm not gonna lie. But I can feel my shoulders dropping so much more when I can rely on someone else that understands what I'm going through and is genuinely there for me. They're like, I'm in community with you. You my sister. Girl, listen, I'll pick the kids up today. Go to sleep. You know how much I love to go to sleep. And my kids are bigger. My kids are 14 and 17 now, but the need that they have for me now is much different than 8 years ago when I started, but the need of community is still the same. I still want to relate to other moms. I still want to talk to women so that they know what their options are. I still sometimes need to cry about it. My loss was
thank you for listening to today's episode.